Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you're well. This is coming to you after a momentous historic weekend in our nation's history. But I want to talk today about allergies. Do you live with allergies? I do. Mine aren't severe. They're an inconvenience most of the time, but they're annoying. When I was growing up, I think I only heard the term hay fever around my house. I didn't understand that those were allergies. Or maybe we just hear the term, more frequently nowadays. Maybe we're allergic to more things because of environmental chemicals or something. But my understanding of allergies is that something comes into our body that our body misinterprets as an attack. And so our defenses rally to protect our bodies from that. And then because of the nature of that pseudo attack, we end up feeling terrible, like we're sick, when really we're fighting off something that is, well, I don't want to say it's imaginary, because it is a trigger. There is something physical there that our bodies are sensitive to, right? But it's not an attack of a germ as our bodies would often think of an attack coming to us, a germ or virus. It's an allergen of some sort. And they can be very deadly. Don't get me wrong. I just happen to be fortunate. My allergies are not life-threatening usually. But I was thinking about them in terms of our culture and our country, and in terms of our spirituality. And I'm wondering if there are some things, and I might decide that there aren't. I'm just sort of, extroverting. But I'm wondering if there are some things that we think of as attacks, and we respond to them as if they are attacks when they're really not. Some of the things that people say to us, for instance, or we say to others, and there's this massive, explosive response that really is disproportionate to what it is that we're talking about or what someone is saying to us. And it's almost like we're allergic to that. And I'm putting that in terms of our current political climate. What if there's not as big a divide as we think there is in our culture? What if it's that the words we are choosing, or the arguments we are using, or the ways we are approaching or not approaching conversations is creating more upset, creating what people perceive to be more upset than really is underlying everything? What if, spiritually, we're saying, I don't want to talk about politically, but spiritually, people are saying the same things, just using different words. I'll give you an example. After I served my first church, it was a one-year contract, and after I completed that 1 year, the contract was not renewed. And later I realized it was because I really had succeeded in bringing back people to the church who the people sort of running the church had pushed out, or helped to feel that, well, maybe those folks weren't going where I don't want to call them power brokers, but where the rest of the people wanted the church to go. And, I just always felt and still feel that the church is the people. Ministers come and go, but the congregation is the church. And so I said that to a number of people who then started attending again, and that made some folks very unhappy. And my contract was not renewed. And this was right out of seminary, 30 years ago. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, I wonder if I'm in the wrong field. And because sometimes you don't know what a profession is like really until you're in it. And I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? So I had to have a living. So I went to work for Kelly Temp Services. and tested very high on, words per minute, typing and editing and all of that kind of stuff. And so they placed me, get this, in a New Testament, born-again Christian fundamentalist church as the church secretary. And that was quite an experience. I was there for just about a year, I think. I think so. And of course, the two ministers there did not believe that women should be allowed to preach or have sway over men, authority over men. And so they certainly would not recognize my position as an ordained minister. And we disagreed on just about every theological point that we could. However, I learned to translate. And I learned that maybe we weren't disagreeing about every single thing. It's just the language that was used kind of turned me off. And I'm sure my language turned them off. And I mean, yes, there are some basics that we would never see eye to eye on. But when it came time for me to leave, one of the ministers said, "Can I take you out to lunch to thank you for your year of service?" And I said, "I'd love that, Jerry." And we had a nice conversation. He gave me a wonderful gift of, one of those perpetual calendars that has biblical verses on it. And one of the things he said to me was, "You and I aren't so different in what we believe." And I said, "No, we're not. Jesus is the model for my life." And we can get hung up over the terminology of, he would say, "Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior." And when I would press him about that, I'd say, "Well, what does that mean? Savior from what?" "Well, from hell, from losing my soul." And then we would get off on a discussion of, well, can one lose one's soul? And is there hell? Or is that terminology that we've given to try to explain the indescribable? Or, just a bunch of neat things, neat conversations that he and I had during that time. And, so Savior, and is there something else you could use besides Lord? And as I was describing for him the primacy that Jesus has in my life, he'd say, "Oh, that's what I mean." So I think that language can be a real barrier if we are so latched onto it that we're not open to other language. And in a way, it's almost like we have a spiritually allergic reaction to people who use certain language, don't we? Immediately our defenses go up and we say, "Oh, no, and I'm going to fight against that." Well, I think we're doing that politically as well. I think that the word socialist, for instance, got thrown around a lot in this last election. Most people who vote on the blue side would say that Joe Biden is not a socialist. Most people on the red side would say, yes, he is. There might be some difference as to what do you mean by socialism. The whole defund the police thing, perfect example, because one group does not mean to defund and take money away from. They mean to reallocate so that we get more social workers involved, and the police aren't expected to do the social working work that they are often put in charge of doing, and the people on the other side are going, defund the police, you're going to take the police away. See, it's the wording, and the reaction becomes, well, it's reactionary, isn't it? And that's what allergies are. So I'm just throwing it out there today for us to kind of think about allergic reactions that are not just physical. They might be mental, emotional, or spiritual allergic reactions. And we know that we can teach our bodies to not respond to allergies. We can have, allergy shots or take something that mitigates that response so that our body doesn't respond in the same way. And I'm encouraging all of us to think about that in terms of our political and spiritual and emotional responses to things. What can we do to mitigate some of those things? What can we do to say, gee, maybe there's a different word. Am I reacting to an allergen here as opposed, and it's not a real threat? We need to dial down the rhetoric, in other words, and find language that works, that is not threatening. And don't tell me, oh, that's politically correct language. It's not politically correct, it's just correct. If you want to have conversation with somebody, you're going to find the language that is least offensive to open the doors. So we need to do that. And that's the assignment for today, to start understanding that and putting ourselves in those situations and saying, oh, how can I do that? All right, that's a thought to start the week off. Thanks for spending this time with me in the prayerful pause in your day to think of something greater than yourselves. In this case, spiritual allergies, let's call it, shall we? And I'm Pastor Deb Swift of South Presbyterian Church in Rochester, New York. Thank you for this time. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you back here next time. God bless. Take care. Bye for now.